Hey, it's Boyd from AIRBOYD, and we are back with the Fraking frame rate video. I'm going to talk a bit about frame rates today. A lot of the questions and comments that we've had in the last couple of days are what's going on with the frame rates. Well, remember, this is sort of an out-of-the-box demo. Take this home, plug it in. It says it does 4K, HDR. Can I do that with my computer at home? I went out and purchased what I call a medium computer once I saw the specs that finally came out. And they don't really handle 4K 60, barely get 4K 30 out of it, so we were trying to dial this in to see where we can get. Now, on one of the secret forums that I can't talk about because of the NDA, some of the other people have found out that there are some settings in here that they recommend changing, and one of those is if you're using NVIDIA to come in here, do custom 3D settings, threaded optimization on, and vertical sync to fast, even if you're not using VSync. Now, inside the flight simulator itself, gone in and it's showing custom here. What I did was I went to high and then started turning down the trees and a couple of the other things that I didn't think would bother me as much. Turned on generic aircraft, generic plane models. We'll go ahead and save that right now. Camera I left the same. Sound, I've got the background music turned down a little. Aircraft traffic I turned off. I also turned off the data for real world air traffic and multiplayer support since we're not using it. And that's pretty much it. So I try to unload it as much as possible to see what we can do. Now, as I come back out here into the main menu, we're sitting here LAX in the A320, and you can see holding a 30, 33 frames a second. As I look outside the aircraft, those numbers jump a little. We'll get up to 40, 45, 55 eventually. It just depends on what it is. And again, I'm using an NVIDIA 2070 Super. Like I said, I feel this is sort of a mid-range one. And this is what we do. So I'll get up flying in a second, but you can take a look outside and you can see it's not quite as pretty as 4K or ultra high, but it is still a pretty good looking picture. So this is a quick insert here. I got a number of questions on forums yesterday and in the comments about what I was using. This is the Thrustmaster TCA Side Stick Airbus Edition. I'm not a huge fan of all the different acronyms Thrustmaster uses because it becomes quite a tongue twister. But I do love this stick, and you can see it here in the video. So there's a little detent in the back here for thrust reverse, and then you'll hear the clicks as it goes in here. So built-in throttle system, speed brakes, and then you've got flaps over here. Of course, all these keys are customizable. It comes with a second set of keys, so you can reverse it for captain or first officer. You can also interchange them if you were playing a different game, or use two of them for multi-purposes. 6 buttons on each side, reversible for left and right. Came right out of the box, ready to work with this. Works pretty well. Gives you a little view hi-hat on top, bring it to the front again, zoom in, zoom out. I use this basically as a grab and go because it does everything. There's also a built-in rudder system for some of you heard me talk about the magnets that it has. They call it the Heart Precision. It's the Hal Effect Accurate Technology, and that's the magnets and the base that just give this a wonderful feel. It's very stable. It doesn't want to pull your table over like some other controls do. Anyway, let's get back to the video. It was just one of the side bits that people had asked me about. So here we are, 5,000 feet, 250 knots, turning back into the Los Angeles basin, looking through the cockpit. And thank you yesterday for everybody that showed me just pushing the space bar is enough to get this up. Apparently I had turned the space bar into using the parking brake, and I didn't have that function as default anymore. Now you'll notice as I'm inside, the frame rate drops quite a bit into the 30s, but as I come outside, it jumps back up into the 50s pretty quickly, pretty close to 60. And again, this is the high rendering with some of the things turned down, like the trees, the hardware acceleration, everything like that turned on. So every now and then there's still sort of a little bit of a lag, and it often seems to happen when the ATC controls start. It's fine. This is something that Los Angeles pretty much looks like at 5,000 feet, and you can see still going up and down on the frame rate here. So we can go out, back into the menu, back this off just a little bit more, and we'll come down to medium, just to give you a difference on how that looks. And you'll see bogs down a little bit as it starts to load, back up to 50, 53, 56. So we're pushing right up against the 60 frames, and you can see what it looks like outside. Pretty realistic. much like you'd get from looking down on a Bing map. Now, we've talked about before, as you get closer down to the ground, that things tend to bog down a little, but of course there's a lot more data streaming through, and a lot of that is happening at a higher speed. So it's got to be rendered, it's got to be downloaded. So I still have 30, 36 inside the cockpit. If I come back outside, I can get it all the way almost back up to 60 consistently. So you sort of drop down there into the 28s and 30s. Still a little hard to do. I did my speed earlier. I reset my modem, getting a little over 800 down and pretty close to 35 up, which isn't nearly as important. Pretty low ping time, about 9 milliseconds today. So just every now and then we'll get that little nudge, as we just said. Now, as we get higher, of course, we expect that this disappears and becomes far less prevalent. And you can see the buildings on Wilshire there coming into view. Some of the mountains just starting to load in because they weren't there initially. So we'll go and climb up a little bit. And as it does that, it gives it time for the distance to render, because that's one of the things that you definitely miss in this. As it's loading new cache in this lower setting, it loads in less detail in the distance. And you can see I'm holding almost 40 frames per second in the climb, but you do see it did drop again as the discussion happened on the radio. Get a little higher, picture still looks pretty good, and I'll just push over the nose a little here, and that's, that's sort of like what we're looking at outside in a fairly natural aircraft world, looking down Coliseum over here, downtown Los Angeles. There's the Staples Center, reservoirs, river, all looks pretty accurate. Maybe a little flat than normal because the 3D's out here, but sort of this is, what you're looking at. Almost holding 60 frames per second. Now, to get beyond this, I'm going to have to look at perhaps overclocking or changing some of these other things. Turning trees to low seems to have a huge effect. Of course, there's something like 1 trillion trees. Turning the aircraft to generic seemed to help, and then turning anybody else off that was on there was a big help as well. Is it going to affect the game? No, it's really going to be more of an issue if you're displaying it like I was trying to do yesterday. Los Angeles came apart for a number of reasons. Either 1.6.12 didn't load properly or 1.6.13 didn't load properly. And I ended up with a complete uninstall and reinstall, had to download the whole 80 gigs again. Of course, it was significantly better afterwards. I was left with some weird artifacts in the cache, though. For instance, flying out of Las Vegas, the stratosphere was shown as sort of a big round tower made out of concrete with windows. It was just a little odd, and I've cleared the cache on that. We'll see how it goes. Now, for the most part, I think this is working out pretty good. This is probably as close as I'm going to get to a perfect 60 frames per second and being able to do everything that I would normally see and or do in this. Sort of a little lag there as the turn went on. Take a look outside. As I paused there with the mouse, we got more lag. Going to take a little more tweaking, but this is sort of what you can expect out of a 2070 Super. A lot of the people on the secret forums are saying that the RAM doesn't matter as much as the other settings. And until yesterday, I really didn't have a lot of other people's settings to look at. The videos coming out online and the different systems are basically fresh because, the NDA came off for certain YouTubers, press members, and things like that. So it's the first time we've really been able to compare video footage. And, this is going to be like someone bringing this home, though. They're going to come home, slap it into their computer, and try and get the highest resolution they can out of it. And it's going to take some tweaking. I've got everything set as basically as I possibly could. There's no pass-through. I've got high-speed cables. I'm doing everything that I possibly can. Take another look outside again. Just passed through 40 there, and we've got 58 frames coming outside. Go ahead and take a different look at the view. And of course, this is pretty much what it would look like with a little bit of haze over Los Angeles coming in. It looks pretty accurate. You can see a little bit of pixelization in the plane and around, but that's about it. So continuing to tweak with the frame rates, trying to get this to the perfect spot. Can I watch it in 4K at home on my own screen? Yes, the lagging doesn't seem anywhere near as pronounced as it does on the YouTube upload, and I think a lot of that might actually have to do with YouTube re-encoding. My video yesterday was uploaded at 4K 60, And, you know, it is what it is. I can't control YouTube's encoding, but, you know, the goal here is to try and share the experience and what's coming out and try and give people sort of a heads up who are thinking about getting a new graphics card. You know, I got a dedicated gaming computer just for this, so it's, you know, it's not a family household computer, though it runs Windows 10 fine. And of course, there's an awful lot of stuff that Microsoft is slowing in through Xbox, you know, Xbox Companion, things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if future versions are basically your PC and not an outside Xbox, but, you know, who really knows? Going over Forest Lawn there, people will recognize that who live in the area, and you'll see the trees slowly puffing in. Of course, that's the data, not so much, but they get a little blurry as you get closer to them, and that's just sort of what you're going to get by turning the trees down, and you can see the hills rendering there. The hills that had been rendered earlier look a little bit better than the ones that hadn't. And, you know, you're not going to be down here flying this low all the time, but this is one of the big things about this, is having the whole planet and being able to see the whole planet. People are going to go do this, and you're going to go do it, and, you know, you're going to have fun for a while, enjoy a ride, and see the planet, and that's, you know, perfectly normal. Now, one other thing, either I misspoke, it was misunderstood yesterday. When I was talking about military bases, Area 51, things of that nature, Area 51 is there. It was there last year when I flew the sim in Renton at the Microsoft release date. Also at the release date, we were not able to get the specs on their high-end machine, nor were we allowed to look inside. So, you know, these specs really haven't come out for people to play with until very recently. Back to what I was talking about. So, I might have misspoke. I haven't gone back to listen to it yesterday. Asobo said, if there's something somewhere that's not supposed to be seen, it won't be there. That's not to say that Area 51 or other military bases throughout the world won't be there to take off and land at. It just means that if something has been blurred out in Bing, that data will not be there in the game. There might be other buildings, there might be complete things, there might be incomplete things. But, you know, this is what Asobo said in one of the developer calls with us, is that, you know, it might not be there. But, you know, the actual Area 51 is. So I'm sorry for any confusion that may have caused yesterday, but we can clear that up right now. We can see Area 51. It's out there. Does it look like the real Area 51? I don't know. I haven't been there. You know, out to Tonopah, anything else like that. There's a lot of stuff out in the Lancaster Valley, Palmdale, as you head up into the desert there. Yesterday we saw Edwards Air Force Base. Pretty basic model, but I mean, that's what I would expect for something that was just right out of the box on that one. So there's Dodger Stadium coming in down there, and it's just coming over the nose. And you can see pretty photorealistic, and as I zoomed in, dropped down a little, back up to almost 60 frames, dropped down to 40 again as it loads the higher resolution. So I'll keep tweaking this to find out what the best settings are. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of websites and forums and videos trying to get this right. Again, I was just trying to do this as, let's call it the layman, the noob 1, 2, 3, 4, as my son would say. You know, I've got this, I'm going to try and run it on the highest system. Not everyone's going to have the money to go out and buy a gaming rig on the first day. Some people are going to be looking to upgrade their graphics cards. Now, it looks like 2080s, 2080 Ti's, the titanium versions, Founders versions seem to be running this a lot better, getting a lot more frame rate out of it, and we really haven't even started looking at overclocking yet. So I'll keep going through the comments, keep trying to respond to you, and I've been on the Discord server talking a little as well. A lot of this is still under NDA, and, you know, look, it's a preview game. Nothing is going to work exactly right completely, and we're allowed to be disappointed about some things. There's going to be a lot of great stuff coming out of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Keep watching.